Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll get started in just a few minutes here. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us and welcome to the GeoCare Navigator training. It's a couple minutes past the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover today. My name is Christina Mertz. I am on the GeoCare Navigator team in HRSA's Bureau of Primary Healthcare. The first half of this training session will be a walkthrough of functionality of the GeoCare Navigator, and that will be done by our team member, Claire McCormick. And then the second half will really be driven by questions from you all. So we'll have questions coming through in the Q&A feature. We have disabled microphones, so just note that, but please use that Q&A feature if and when you have a question. And this session will be focused on functionality of the GeoCare Navigator. But we know with the timing of this training, it's right around when folks are working on their new access point or service area applications. So we do have some subject matter experts on the phone to help us with those questions as they relate to the GeoCare Navigator requirements. And we are recording today's session, and we'll be posting the recording on the tools resources dropdown. So look out for that in the coming weeks. But without further ado, I will hand it over to Claire to start our walkthrough of the tool.
Thanks so much, Christina. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, perfect. And can you see that I've now switched to data.hrsa.gov?
Yep, I can see your screen perfectly. Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As Christina said, my name is Claire McCormick, and I'm a member of the team that runs this GeoCare Navigator tool. We're really excited to have you here with us. And as Christina said, we're going to start today with an overview of the functionality of the tool. So very quickly, if you would like to follow along, Christina's going to put the link to the tool itself in the Zoom chat if that's possible. And you are more than welcome to follow along if you've got double screens or just watch, whatever makes you most comfortable. When using the tool, it is important that you use Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. Those are the two browsers that the tool is optimized for, so please make sure that you're using Edge or Chrome. If you're ever on data.hrsa.gov and you're looking for the tool, I know many of you have the direct link, but just in case you ever are looking for it, you can find it at data.hrsa.gov under Maps and then the Health Center Program GeoCare Navigator. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the tool itself. So when I access the tool, I'm going to be brought to the home page. And so this is pretty self-explanatory, but to give everyone a walkthrough, we of course have the title of the tool. We have a resources drop-down. This is at the top right-hand corner of your screen. And I really want to highlight this because this is where we recommend everyone get started. We're very happy and grateful to have you with us today on live training. You'll probably get a very in-depth overview. But when everyone's getting used to the tool and getting started, we really do recommend checking out the resources because there's a lot of helpful tips, tricks, and then information about what's in the tool itself. So we've got a pretty hefty user guide. We've got an intro video. We have a past live training recorded. And as Christina mentioned, there will be this training itself will be uploaded in a few weeks. We have some information about the data in the tool and then the zip code to Zicta crosswalk. So always recommend people starting here. I will show you how to reach out to us on the BitBit contact form if you can't find what you're looking for. But this is where we recommend people, get started, get familiar with the tool, etc. Moving to the actual tool itself, on the left-hand side of the screen, I have the navigation panel. So this is where everyone's really going to get started, and I will circle back to here in just a moment. And then I have the map view. So this is what it's going to look like when I log into the tool. You'll see a map of the United States. You can zoom in and zoom out using these plus and minus buttons on the lower right-hand side of your screen. Also, if you have a mouse and you have a mouse wheel, you can use that to zoom in and zoom out as well. If you ever get in a pickle and need to get yourself back to the default home screen, which is this entire map view, you can click the home button and it will just zoom itself right back out to our default view. We also have these 6 widgets at the top of the screen, these blue boxes. And I'll talk more about this once we actually get going in the tool, but just want to point those out that this is part of the default view. You'll see these and we'll talk more about those in depth once we've got service area and sites created. So we're going to start by actually walking through the functionality of the tool. So we're going to go to this left-hand navigation panel. And I'd say about 90% of our users want to start with filling out an application. So there's 2 options. You can fill out an application, or if you have an existing map file. Like I said, about 99% of you are going to want to start here at filling out an application. And this is where you want to start, even if you're just poking around in the tool, playing around, exploring, etc. You are more than welcome to do that. We encourage it. Please don't be discouraged and be like, well, I'm not filling out an application. This is still where you want to start. Have an existing map file is if you have already been in the map tool, you've exported your map as a GeoJSON, which is a type of file, and you want to put it back into the map so that you can see it again. You want to put it back into the tool so that you can re-see what you've done. So again, most people are not going to do that. We just want to start with the filling out an application point. I'm going to hit get started. And you'll see that now it'll prompt me to choose the type of application that I am pursuing. Again, if you're exploring, you're more than welcome to just choose a type of application and play around. You cannot break the tool. You're more than welcome to poke around, etc. And the tool itself is going to look the same and work the same no matter what type of application you choose. So if I chose a new access point application, I'm still going to have the same functionality that I would have for a service area competition application and so on and so forth. The only difference is that when you are doing a specific application, there are requirements for each data table and map layers. So a new access point might ask for a different data element than a service area competition application has. And so we, as the tool owners, have customized the type of application. So I'm going to choose new access point just as an example to automatically or default have on the map layers and the data table elements that are required, the basic map layers and the basic data table elements. You can see it on the left-hand side of the screen. When I chose new access point, it writes out for new access point application, include the following in your map, and then include the following in your data table. And these are automatically turned on for you. And so if I chose a service area competition application, it's still going to look the same. It's just that my default map layers and things on the map, as well as my data table elements, are going to change just slightly. So I am going to demo today a new access point application, but I wanted to make it clear that it's not a different tool just because of the type of application you're using. So I'll go ahead and choose new access point and hit continue. And we are going to start looking at the tasks that we have to complete. So first you'll notice that since I've chosen new access point, things have populated on the map. So this is going to be the map elements and data layers that are required and default turned on for the application type. So if I zoom in, and I'm going to zoom into the suburban Washington, D.C. area, you'll see that I have items on the map like hospitals and these little stars are health centers, etc. And I'll show you how to find a legend momentarily. There are a list of tasks to be accomplished. So for certain applications, you're going to need to add a service delivery site. For each application, you'll need to create a service area. And so it prompts you automatically to go through these actions as a list. So we'll start by creating a service area. And we just hit start. And the map can sometimes just take a few seconds to load, especially if I'm zooming around fairly quickly. So we do encourage users to just give it a second. You'll see that the zip codes will populate as I continue to demo. So there are a few ways to create a service area or your potential service area. You can filter by point. And so if I click this, it's going to allow me to click into a ZICTA itself. And so this would mean that I could just click a point on the map. Hold on one second. I'm going to go ahead and refresh my page. I think I've been playing around in the tool for too long before this training, so bear with me. Sometimes it will time out on us, and I had it up before this training, so I think it's giving me a bit of a hassle. Bear with me just one second. Apologize for this. Okay, so I'm gonna just get us back to where we were. Thank you for your patience. I'm gonna zoom right back into Washington, D.C. And I'm back in the new access point application and I'm creating my service area. So as we were doing, we are going to begin by filtering by point. And so again, if I click filter by point, I can choose a single ZICTA in the map service area, and it will select that ZICTA automatically. If I want to select another ZICTA, I can click that point again and choose another ZICTA, and that would be my service area. Now, for purposes of this demo, I'm going to show you that you can delete any ZICTAs that you accidentally choose. So if I accidentally chose 20851 and I didn't want it in my service area, I could just click this little red trash can next to the ZICTA, and it will come out of the map view as well as in my selected ZICTAs. If I wanted to delete all ZICTAs I had chosen, I can click this eraser at the top right-hand side of the screen, or top middle hand side of the screen, and it will take out all ZICTAs. I can also draw a line in the tool and it will select all ZICTAs that intersect it. So again, I'm choosing filter by line, and I'll click one dot in one ZICTA, and I can draw a line and double click when I'm done. And it will choose all ZICTAs in the area that have intersected that line. For purposes of the demo, I'm just going to clear them all as we're walking through how to create a service area in multiple ways. I can filter by polygon. And so this is going to let me draw a shape. So if I knew, hey, I'm going to serve the Germantown, Maryland area all the way down to the Potomac, Maryland area and over towards Aspen Hill, I can draw dots on the screen. And then when I'm done creating my shape, I just double click. And again, all the ZICTAs within that polygon are going to populate on the map and within my selected ZICTAs. I can also search for a ZICTA. So just by clicking this magnifying glass, I can search for a certain ZICTA. So if I choose 20852, you'll see that I can click either this play icon, which will show me where it is in the map, or I can click the plus icon and that will add it to the map. I could also search for 20817, click this plus button, and it adds right to the map. I'm going to delete these once more. We have add by file upload. So if you are working in a number of ZICTAs, I know there are some rural areas that serve many, many ZICTAs. You can also upload those by a CSV file, and there are clear instructions on what that file would need to look like here. And then you'd click select file and those ZICTAs would upload and be added to the map. Finally, we also have copy and paste. So if you had a list of ZICTAs, you could copy and paste them directly into the tool. We do ask that those would be separated by a comma. So I'll go ahead and paste. You'll see that I've got two ZICTA codes. ZICDAs, excuse me. And if I hit validate ZICDAs, it will make sure that those match a zip code and vice versa. So if you're working off zip codes, it'll make sure it's got a matching ZICDA, and it'll alert you that it'll either match or won't match. And then I can click add, and my 2 zip codes and ZICDAs are there. We also can create a service area by distance. So I'm going to delete those 2 ZICDAs. And if I scroll back up and look at the by distance, I'm right under add service delivery sites. There are 2 ways that I could create my service area by distance. So first is by radius. So let's say I was going to create a service area in 20850. I could click where my service area where I want it to be. And then I can adjust the map by radius. So right now it's default set to 30. I could bring it down by sliding this down. Let's say I wanted to look at all the ZICDAs within 16 miles of that point. You'll see that the map populates that as well as selects the ZICDAs. We also have the distance between locations. And this is very helpful because we can explore the distance between where you're proposing to add a site or the different an existing health center, or the distance between an existing health center or another existing health center. There may be additional mileage requirements for the new access point applications. And so just want to show you that this can be a helpful tool for examining distance between locations. So for this, I'd click on a site. Let's say I'd like to add a new site up here in 20855, and I want to see how close it is to this other health center, which is represented by a star. I'll click that star. And if I zoom back out, you'll see that it gives me the distance between those 2 in miles is 4.76. And I also have the selected ZICDAs from those 2 distances available below. So I'm going to delete this, and for purposes of continuing on with the demo, I'm actually going to go back to draw on map and just choose a few ZICDAs in the HRSA HQ area, so where HRSA is based out of. And we are going to pretend that we are going to add a new service delivery site in this service area. So I've created my service area. And now for a new access point, my next step would be to go ahead and click back. And now I can add service delivery sites. So there are 2 ways to do this as well. We can add a new site by a CSV file. So if you had multiple sites, you might want to do this. Again, there are very clear and specific instructions on how to do this, what the column should look like and what should be in each column. Or you can type the address of the site itself in the tool. So I am going to make our new access point be the HRSA HQ building. And I'm just going to type the address in. And the tool will recognize the address. And again, I can click this little play icon and it will show me in a green icon where that site is. And when I'm ready to add it to the map, I can go ahead and click add to map. And you will see this purple dot indicates where my new access point is, where my service delivery site that I've added is. You'll also see it in my data, that is, this address is added to the tool. Now that we have a service area created and our service delivery site added to the tool, I'm going to circle back to these widgets that we talked about in the very beginning of the presentation. So these are just, we're going to go through them very quickly. There is more information on the user guide as well as the introductory video. So if you would like further information, we recommend starting there. But we first have the map layers widget. And so again, all of the default layers are going to be turned on based on what type of application you're filling out. So for a new access point, the health center service delivery sites are automatically turned on. And I can see that because the eye is open versus health center administrative only sites, the eye is closed. If you are playing around in the tool and you wanted to add additional map layers, aka other things you'd like to see on the map, this is where you'll go and you'll just open them and then you can click the eye icon to turn them on and off. So a question, and I can also expand this by pulling out from this little right hand lower corner of the box. A question that I sometimes see is, hey, I'd like to look at county boundaries. You can scroll down to US boundaries, look for counties, and then turn on that eye, and you'll see that the map now has county boundaries. To turn it back off, I just click it and they'll go away. So that's the map layers widget. We also have the legend. So this is very helpful, especially as you're getting to know the tool, to see what is on each site. So you'll see a health center service delivery site is a star on the map. A lookalike service delivery site is a green triangle, and so on and so forth. And this will update as you add map layers to the view. We have the population and UDS layers. This is if you would want to visualize data on a map itself. We have both population data and UDS data. So for instance, you could change and look at the percent of uninsured. You could visualize that on the map. For purposes of time, I'm just not going to add that right now, but you're more than welcome to play around with this. I believe that for new access point, we automatically have an MUIP layer on. Please note that if you're working with population and UDS layers, only one can be turned on at a time. And you can differentiate them between combined, which is awardees and lookalikes, or just single them out into awardees and lookalikes data. Next, we have the base map gallery. And this is if you wanted to change the view of the map. We are default in light gray canvas. We recommend that you stay here, but just want to make you aware that there are some other options. We have the print report, which I'm going to circle back to in just one moment. And then we have search. So if you wanted to search for an address or a place on the map, but you didn't want to necessarily add it, you just wanted like a point of reference, you can use this to search and it will bring you to that point on the map. Now that we've walked through the adding a new service delivery site, adding a service area, and the map widgets, I am going to go ahead and review the map and data table. So I can do this by clicking back, and there is a task called Review Map and Data Table, and I can go ahead and click Start. So first and foremost, there are two ways to review your data table. You can either click this button down here, which will say View Data Table, or you can go down and at any point while you're playing around in the map, there is this little caret at the bottom middle of the screen. And when I click it, the data table itself will pop out. Again, what is already in the data table will vary depending on the application type. So if I was in service area competition versus a new access point, this might look slightly different. However, there are ways that you can add points to the data table. And there are a number of reasons you might want to add more data points, including, I know the new access point has some reasoning on attachment 12, pages 39 and 40 in the NOFO, and I'm actually going to defer to our subject matter expert to explain a little more on the reasoning behind that. Joanne?
Thanks, Claire. And if you're working on a new access point application, you may have seen towards the back of the NOFO, we have some service area considerations or geographic considerations of need. And like Claire said, it's on pages 38 to 40 of the NOFO. And if your application, if your sites meet any of those criteria on those that's listed on those pages, you're going to have to provide some extra documentation in your application. And part of it you can get easily through the GeoCare Navigator and add to your data table that we're talking about right now. Again, it's the NAP-NOFO, and it outlines those specific service area considerations on pages 38 to 40, and it describes the extra documentation you need to submit with your application. So Claire showed you how you can check your driving distance between sites. So that's one of the things that you can use the GeoCare Navigator to help you determine if you meet these criteria or not. And some of the other data points that you need to include, you can find right in the GeoCare Navigator and add them to your data table. And mostly for the data points that you add to that you can add in GeoCare Navigator, you would add that information if the health center program already serves 50% or more of the low-income population in your proposed new access point service area. So, and you'll see that in the GeoCare Navigator, we call it Health Center Program Penetration. So I'll let Claire show you how you can add some of those new extra data points onto your data table.
Absolutely. And thank you so, so much, Joanne. We really appreciate your expertise. So as Joanne said, if you needed to add extra data points to your table for purposes of an application or purposes of just playing around and doing your own research, exploring, you're gonna wanna look for this little plus sign within a box that's under Zicta table. And this will say show hide columns. And this will open a box that has all of the available data points within the tool. And these are broken out by Zicta. So for instance, if I wanted to look at the number of uninsured patients per Zicta, I could scroll down and look at HCP, sorry, I'm going to find this, uninsured percent 2022. And I can check the box and it will add to my data table. So you'll see HCP uninsured percent 2022 has been added to the data table by Zicta. To remove it, you're going to do the same process. So you just scroll back into this box, open it, find the data point that you'd like to remove, and then you can unclick it. A very, very important note is that if you add more data points to the data table versus what is just provided as a default, you need to export the data table as a CSV. Additional data points will not export in the PDF. So to do that, you'd click this little cloud button next to that plus sign and hit export CSV data. And when you hit that, it will automatically go to your downloads as a CSV with all of the columns that you've added to the data table. So just a highlight that you really, really do want to watch that if you're adding things to the data table, make sure you export as a CSV. If I'm ready to print the map, I'm going to just go ahead and minimize this data table for now. I can either access it by hitting export or print here, or going back up to that map widget that says print report. It'll bring you to the same place no matter what. And you will get a menu of what you would like your PDF export to look like. So we're always going to include the map and the legend, and a note that the map will export based on what you're seeing. So if I am zoomed all the way in like this and I export the map, that's what's going to show up on the PDF. If I'm zoomed all the way out like this is what's going to export as the map. So you want to make sure that what you have as your view is kind of what you want the map to look like in the PDF. I'll include site information, which is what I added, that purple dot, that new site. The data table, again, this will not contain any additional data points. And then any additional notes I could add, for instance, test in here. But if you had any additional notes, you could add them there into the export. And I will name this training. You would obviously want to give it a more specific name, and I can export it into a PDF. This little blue donut will pop up and indicate that it is exporting. Sometimes it can take a minute or two, especially if you're working with a lot of Zictas to export. So we ask that you just give it a second to work. And once I have done that, it will pop up into my downloads and you will see my map itself, the legend, the date that I exported, the data table, again, without any additional columns, the site information, and then any additional notes that I added. At the very beginning of this training, we talked about that navigation panel and how Sometimes people would want to re-upload a map. I'm not going to go into depth on that. There's more information available in the user guide. And so if you're filling out an application, you're going to want to stick with a PDF. But if for some reason you wanted to export and be able to re-upload into the map, you do have the option to export into a GeoJSON. Again, most people are not going to use that, but just want to show that that is an option. So we've talked through the functionality of the map tool itself, and before we get to question and answer, which we'll have plenty of time for, I want to talk about troubleshooting. So there are a few ways to troubleshoot the tool. The first thing that we have encountered is that sometimes users need to clear their browser cache. Sometimes when we have deployed updates to the tool, or users might be seeing something glitchy or experiencing something glitchy. Unfortunately, one of the ways that we found to work around that is by clearing your browser cache. We're working to find a solution so that users do not have to do this in the future. We understand it's a pain, but for right now, we want to make users aware that that is something that we encourage everyone to try doing if they run into a problem with the tool. To do that, you would open your settings. And then go to privacy and security. Delete browsing data, and then you're going to want to make sure that you choose cached images and files. And you want to make sure that you click it for all time. A lot of times we'll see that users, organizations will limit their refresh. Their default will be the last hour in Edge or Chrome. So we want to make sure that people are selecting all time as their time range when they're clearing their cache, and then going ahead and clicking delete data. And that will clear your cache. So you can do that in Edge and Chrome, but we really want to encourage users to know that that is one way to troubleshoot. The other option is you could use an incognito browser. So if your organization allows that, you can always click into that as well. If that does not help, we want to talk about the BIPIC contact form, which I know many of you are aware of and familiar with, but just a quick walkthrough in case this is your first time working with us. And Christina, I believe, will share this if possible with the chat. So the BIPIC contact form is where you're going to go if you need help. If you are looking to find us, so specifically help with the tool, you're going to want to scroll down and look for Health Center data and research, and then go ahead and click Health Center Program GeoCare Navigator, formerly UDS Mapper. This will open a new ticket. So you'll tell us about your request. We'll ask a few questions about what's going on, and that will come directly to our team. And so we will be able to engage with you and troubleshoot, email back and forth, and figure out how to help you. I do want to note that there are other categories in the tool. So for instance, I know there are a few applications for notice of funding opportunities open. If you have a question specific to, for instance, a new access point application, you're going to want to go to funding, applications for notice of funding opportunities, or NOFOs. And then you can choose what type of NOFO you're inquiring about. So a service area competition is available, new access points, etc. Same deal, it will go directly to the subject matter experts for that area, and they will be able to engage with you and help troubleshoot whatever you are facing. So just want to highlight that if you're asking a question specifically about the tool, come to us down here about the GeoCare Navigator. If you've got more of a question about the application itself, you'll want to go to funding. If for some reason there's a mess up, don't worry, we do work together here at BIPIC, so we'll be able to get you to the right person. But just for quickness, we want to make sure to empower you to find who you're looking for, if at all possible. So with that, I'm going to take a breath, and I believe that we are going to get started with some question and answer, which Christina will be moderating.
Yes, great. Thank you so much, Claire. And I know Claire covered a lot, and we got a lot of really great questions. We were, typing answers, but also selected a few of the questions to answer live. So I'll just kind of go through the list here. The first really, really good question that we got early on in the session was, when will the tool be updated with 2023 UDS data? That's a very good question. We are aiming for the fall. And just so everyone knows, we will keep the same UDS data in the tool until after the application period ends for the new access point. We want everyone to be working with the same data set, and then we will go ahead and update the tool in October to have the 2023 UDS data. So just an important note there, you will see the UDS data updated in October. So very exciting. Okay, and then another great question. I think there's several in here. I've tried to retrieve data related to entered ZICTAs. I've tried to get demographic information as well as other type of information. I check the boxes for the data I want, and I'm assuming in the PDF, it doesn't include that data. So Claire did mention this, I believe, after this question was asked, but Claire, could we just go over again? In the data table, you're going to want to export actually to CSV if you've added extra data points. So Claire's gonna, sorry to make you do this, Claire, go through.
Oh, not a problem at all. This is what
Perfect.
we're here for. So happy
Yeah.
to answer. And I know it was a lot of information in one quick go. So happy to do anything that we can to if we need to revisit anything. So if you are adding demographic information as well as other types of information to the data table, let me just choose a ZICTA so that I have a service area. Sorry, bear with me. I like to refresh the tool so that I don't get stuck. I will open the data table and I'm going to go ahead and click this plus box. And I open the data table by clicking this arrow at the bottom of the screen. And then I've got this plus button at the very left-hand side of the screen under ZICTA table. And for instance, if I wanted to add population adults who smoke percentage, I can add that. There is a summary at the bottom of the row. If you are not seeing that, recommend trying clearing your cache. And then again, if you are adding anything, so any data points, for instance, this population of adults who smoke, you're going to want to export as a CSV. So to do that, you'd click this cloud and export the data table as a CSV. This will not export, this population adults who smoke will not export to the PDF at this time. So feel free to play around, add multiple data points, etc. But we want to make sure that you know to export to the CSV.
That's perfect. Thank you, Claire. And then also it looks like people might be having some trouble seeing the summary row, which we have heard from a few users. So, and spoiler alert for everyone attending this training, the summary row will be moved to the top. I know that it's something that was in UDS Mapper, and we have heard you guys, and we are going to move that summary row to the top. But Claire, I'm wondering if you could show folks how to expand the data table. The data table can be moved up or down. If you hover around the little arrow pop-up, that little pop-out, yeah, if you go down just a little bit, you're able to kind of click on the line there and drag the table up so that if you do have a lot of ZICTAs, this is a way to kind of make sure that you're able to see all the lines. But we do recognize that that summary row is sometimes hard to see. So we're going to move that up. And that will also help you, as you're adding ZICTAs, you'll be able to see that summary row change as you add more ZICTAs. So hopefully that is a change that will help everyone out with that summary row. Okay, so I think we've covered that question. I'm just going down the list now. We have a new access point question that I will read and hand over to Joanne. When creating a map for new access points, do we include the entire service area or just the specific ZICTA for the new access point? For example, our current service area is the entire county. For the new access point, we are focusing on a ZICTA within the county. And I will let Joanne go ahead and answer that.
Thanks. So in your new access point application, you will enter the zip codes for your NAP service area for that site in your application in Form 5B, and that will be considered your service area. So you should make your map of your service area consistent with those service area zip codes that you enter in Form 5B for your application. So it would be the zip codes where you believe most of your NAP patients will be coming from. So not only the zip code where your site is going to be located, but also the zip codes where you believe most of your patients will be coming from as well. So it could be the entire county for that new access point, or it could be a certain number of zip codes that are, you know, surrounding that where you have your new access point site. It's also important because the zip codes that you enter in Form 5B will also be used to determine your unmet needs score. So it's really important to think through what your service area will be. So that's why we have so many different tools to help you do that.
Perfect. Thank you, Joanne. And then just going through the list, someone is interested in getting some race and ethnicity filters, specifically for the American Indian, Alaskan Native population. Claire, I think we went over this widget, but could you go to the different like the population layers? Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be in the third widget there that Claire clicked on, the population data. And then you'll be able to see, and I think it's maybe scroll down just a little bit more, Claire. I cheated and checked the tool a little bit more before while we got this question. So it's right there, and you're able to turn that on. And just a note for everyone that for these layers in this third widget, you can turn one on at a time. It's just because the layering and the color coding gets a little crazy when we have more than one layer at a time. So we have just limited the tool to show one layer, but you're able to get that population data and then the different, color coding for each of the different gradients there. So that's how you do that. And there's a lot of great data in there. There's really a lot of data points. And as you guys have seen, in the data table, there's so many different data points. And then there's also these a way to show them on the map if you need to. So that is how you show them on the map. We got another question. It was one that I wanted to answer just because we got it a few times. Can you pull data by county, not ZICTA? This is a really good question. It's feedback that we've gotten from you all, and we definitely have this on our list of improvements to the tool. With the tool being released about 7 months ago, we wanted to make sure that all of the functionalities that were really needed for, specific applications and things like that were in the tool. And now we're working on enhancements. So your feedback really, really matters to us. I don't say that lightly. We really are taking all of the different feedback. And this is one that we did get from a few users even early on. So we're going to, we do have that on our list to kind of explore how can we pull data by county. You can get to the county boundaries in this tool. That's another question we get a lot. And I'm wondering, Claire, if we could go to that first widget of the map layers and show everyone where the county boundaries are. It's all the way at the end under the, perfect, under the US boundaries. And counties are not turned on by default, but you're able to add them to the map. And you'll be able to see the county boundaries. It's a little tough to see with, additional map layers, but feel free to, go ahead and add those. And there's different other boundaries. One question that we got that I think I answered just through a message to whoever asked it was about congressional districts. We haven't heard too much about congressional districts and needing those, but it's a layer that we could also potentially add here. And just want to encourage everyone, please send us your feedback through the contact form. We, like I said, are really taking that into account. And we can explore adding these other boundaries that would help you guys out as you look at this data. Okay, so we're going through that one. We have another question for the new access point team. How do we determine the service area for the new access point?
Yeah, so it all depends on your new access point project. So you would have to think about where your patients are going to come from, who will be going to that site, who you'll be serving. So you determine that, unlike service area competition, where the service area is kind of already determined for you. For new access points, you determine your own service area. So it would include the zip code where your site is located, and then where you are expecting most of your patients to come from, whether you're doing outreach in those areas, or if you already have some patients who are coming from those areas, and that's why you're putting a new access point in that particular zip code. So you would determine that yourself, and I think you would also look at the needs in the area and how much need is in the area, and you can do that through another tool that we have, which is the unmet needs score map tool. And we can put the link to that in the chat as well, so that you can kind of use these two tools together to look at your service area.
Great. Thank you so much, Joanne. Let's see. I am just now scrolling through some of the newer questions. We got a lot of questions about labeling. So labeling, I think, is something that was maybe newish in UDS Mapper, and we haven't moved labeling here into this tool yet. We know that it's something that people have asked about. Just visually, as you can imagine, and a good example is, Claire is kind of zoomed out here, and you can imagine labeling would be really tough, especially if you have your service area zoomed out. But we are looking into how to make labeling, or maybe something in the legend, available, so that you'll be able to see the health center orgs that are in the service area. So just know that we are working on that. Labeling is something that's just really tricky. It's not something that we were able to incorporate in the first launch of the tool. But like I said, we're making enhancements. And labeling, Joanne, is not required necessarily for the new access point application. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. We have, we can see by default, we can see the existing sites that are there, the little stars, and we can see what we need to see already on the map by default, except for your new access point site, which you already showed us how to add that big purple dot for your new access point sites. And then there's a place in the PDF when you print it, that where you could add some more detail, some more narrative. So if you have more than one site, you can put those addresses in there. And if you want to explain more about the other current sites in your service area, you can also do that right in the PDF when you create the PDF.
Perfect. Thank you, Joanne. Just a few other questions that I see. Something that we have been experiencing the last few months is folks kind of clicking on a site and seeing, let's say you're clicking on a site in Maryland, and I think Claire might have mentioned this, but you click on a site in Maryland and the information card shows that it's actually, giving us information from a site in New Mexico. And that is something that we have been working with our developers on. It's actually related to that cache clearing issue. So we do have a fix for it. It's just you have to clear your cache. So feel free to, clear cache, let us know, send us that contact form ticket if you're still having problems after clearing your cache for all time. But it is something that, once users troubleshoot that issue by clearing their cache, it does go away. And so we do have a fix for that. It's just apologies that you have to clear your cache. Another thing to, instead of clearing your cache, another option is to use an incognito browser window. And that will automatically kind of not look at your past, visits to the tool. And your cache will automatically be cleared in that incognito window. And you'll be able to see the sites with the correct information for the city, state, site name. All of that will be corrected in the incognito window. So we've had success there. And we also just really want to apologize for that. We're looking into other solutions. We know that cache clearing is not the most optimal solution. We're hoping that incognito browser window is something that is a little bit easier because you don't have to clear your cache. So really try that out and make sure that you're able to see the correct sites, the correct locations. And like I said, always feel free to reach out if you need help troubleshooting. We are the ones that answer those questions that come in through the contact form. So it's always, great to hear from you. And yeah, just let us know if you're still having trouble with that. Let's see. We do have a question, and you guys are really just hitting on all of the potential enhancements that we are working on. Someone was asking if there will be a feature to select all the additional data elements in the data table. Claire, I'm wondering if you could just pop out that data table again so that we can show everyone where kind of what we're talking about here with those additional data elements. Can you pop out that data table?
Absolutely.
And we can that. Perfect.
So you just click this, pop out the data table, and I'm sorry, I keep doing it without explaining. You open it from the bottom caret, and I call this little up-facing icon a caret. And then you'd want to click right here, and you can choose whichever you'd like to add or take away. And sorry, go ahead, Christina. I was going to say, in the future, we do hope to have the ability to search and be able to add multiple at one go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think someone in their question was like, will there ever be the availability to add all of them at once? And I know that none of us want to go through and select every single one individually. It's just not fun. It takes a minute or two, but we do want to incorporate that feature into the tool. And I believe that was a suggestion from someone that we are incorporating that into our enhancements list. So that will be another item coming soon. And I'm just scrolling through.
I saw a good question, Christina. Sorry, I'm finding it now. And I think we'll defer to the NAP subject matter experts for this, but I see a question that says, for NAP mobile clinic sites, in our 5B and MAP, do we pick the zip codes where we believe that the most patients will come from? Are there any other mapping considerations for mobile clinic sites? Example, miles from current sites.
Right. So for a mobile clinic site, you would consider your service area the same as for any other site. You would choose those zip codes where you believe most of your patients are going to come from. So that would be your service area. We do still have those service area considerations that we talked about on pages 38 to 40 for mobile clinic sites. We'll look at them. We do take into consideration that may be a mobile site. We take into consideration all those things that you submit with the extra documentation. But it might, the way we look at it might be a little bit differently for those mobile clinic sites, but you would still have to pay attention to those service area considerations at the end. And we do still use your service area zip codes that you input into Form 5B for your unmet need score. So we look, even though it's a mobile site, we look at your service area in the same way as we do every other site.
Thank you so much, Joanne.
Perfect. And then I see another question that I think we wanted to answer live. Is there a way to get the other healthcare sites to show up on the map in that area? That's a really good question. I'm wondering, Claire, if we should go into maybe the map layers to kind of turn on a few more.
Absolutely.
Health facilities?
Sure.
Perfect.
So when we are looking for other health care sites, we want to go to this map layers widget. It's on the top left-hand side of the map. And I will open this and you'll see that there's lots of options. So I could look at SAMHSA facilities and providers. I automatically have health center program sites on. I've got health center program lookalikes. And then I have other health facilities. So hospitals is already turned on. Let's say I wanted to look for Veterans Health Administration, facilities. I could turn that layer on. You'll see that these little V's have been added to the map. And I can identify them by going to that legend. And you'll see, okay, I've got Veterans Health Administration facilities on the map now. If I wanted to add, and now I'm clicking back into the map layers, if I wanted to add, for instance, IHS, and I don't think that there is one in this area, so this is not a great example, but if you're in an area that has IHS facilities, you could add them as well, and so on and so forth. And to turn them off, you just click the I again. It'll get a little slash through it, and you'll know that you are not currently viewing those sites.
Perfect. Thank you, Claire. And I'm just looking through. Oh, I'm wondering, okay, there was a little bit of feedback around the data table pop-up and how small it is, and I totally agree. I think it's a little bit hard to see that arrow. Claire, could we walk through how to get to the data table in the task list as that
Sure.
third item? Perfect. Thank
Sure.
you.
So if you can't see this caret, which totally get, the map can be very crowded and it's little, you can go to review map and data table. So I'd hit start. And then if I hit view data table, it's going to pop out. So if you're ever looking for it and you can't find it, go ahead and click review map and data table. And there's a big button here that says view data table. I also saw someone, Christina, that wanted us to walk through clearing cache again, which I'm happy to do. Slightly different instructions for Chrome versus Microsoft Edge. I'm in Chrome right now, but if you're in Chrome, you'll just go to settings, this 3-button drop down at the top right-hand side of your screen. Go to settings, go to privacy and security, delete browsing data, and then you don't have to delete your browsing history. You can just select cached images and files and make sure your time range is of all time, and then you'd hit delete data. In Microsoft Edge, it's very similar. I'm switching to Edge right now. Settings and more, history. Oh, excuse me, I'm actually gonna go to settings and then settings. And then I'm gonna go to privacy, search and services. Scroll down and go to delete browsing data. And again, it's going to open. You don't have to delete your browsing history. You're just going to look for cached images and files. Make sure it says for all time and hit clear now. And if you have problems with that, reach out to us via the BIPIC contact form. We have links to detailed instructions there as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Claire.
Sure.
And I know we're running out of time, so I'm just scrolling through the list. A few questions that we got on pasting zip codes into the create service area task. It sounds like a few of you are pasting, directly from Excel. And what's tripping you up a little bit is the comma separators. That is also something that we are working on, where we would like to also allow spaces to be able to separate those ZICTAs in that list. So that is another coming soon item. We have definitely heard some feedback on that. And so we will be, making sure that spaces as well as commas will be taken into account to enter those ZICTAs. Just one last question. I know we're running out of time. Is there a way to preview your printout of the map and table before you print? That is not something that we have yet, but that is a great suggestion. And all of these great suggestions we are noting, and please reach out to us through the contact form. You guys have such great feedback. You're in the tool, doing these different applications and doing research. So we definitely want to hear from you. I know we are out of time today, but I just wanted to take some time to thank everyone. Thank you all for being here. And like I said, reach out to us. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question in the Q&A feature, but please reach out to us through the contact form. I put the link in the chat closer to when Claire was demoing. And yeah, thank you all for coming. I wanted to thank our subject matter experts who joined us today, as well as our closed captioner. And thank you all. Hope you all have a great rest of the week. Thanks.
Thank you guys. Bye.